Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
We're learning Mishnah Yishkalim, Perek Vav, Chapter 6, Mishnah Vav, Mishnah 6. Ha'omer, one who declares, Harei alai eitzim, I accept upon myself to bring wood. Now, this is spoken about a person who has accepted to bring upon himself wood for the altar. So, on that Mishnah says, so how much wood does he have to donate? Or whether it's the wood itself that he brings, or whether it's the money that he puts into the chest that says wood, how much wood are we talking about? Again, he didn't specify. He just said, Harei alai eitzim. It is that wood. Actually, eitzim is plural, woods. It's upon me to bring pieces of wood. Lo yivchais mishnei gizrim. No less than 2 blocks of wood. Because he said eitzim, which is plural, the minimum of plural is 2. Therefore, he has to bring 2 blocks. Now, blocks means that the way they explain this here is these blocks are as large as those used on the Mizbeach. It was the standard side block of wood that they use on the Mizbeach, on the altar. And because he said I accept upon myself to bring 8 pieces of wood, that means at least 2. Now, let me just read to you what they say were the sizes of the pieces of the wood. Each piece should be 1 amma square and as thick as the standard stick used to level grain that was heaped on the top of a sa'ah measure. That's what it says. Can't tell you what that is. But that's how that's the measurement. That's the size of the wood. It's 2 blocks. It's the kind of block that was used on the altar. And what I just read to you was the size. Now, again, whether he's going to bring the wood himself or he's going to deposit enough money for 2 blocks of wood in the chest that says wood. If this person would have said, if he wanted to have said Harei alai eitzim, he wouldn't have said woods, pieces of wood. He would have said Harei alai eitz, which means 1 piece of wood. Then you don't have to bring 1 piece of wood. It's not like the minimum always has to be 2. It's because in the Mishnah's case, he said eitzim, which used the plural form, then it's 2. But if he would say eitz, 1 piece, he could also do that.
But that would be a block.
Be 1 block, right. Now, because again, the point is these are wood to be used on the Mizbeach. All right, so that's the first part of the Mishnah. Levaina, let's say accepts upon himself to bring Levaina, the frankincense. How much? Lo yivchais mi kometz, no less than a kometz. A kometz is when you take these 3 fingers, right? These 3 fingers, and you fold them over. There's a space. That's a kometz. And we learn that is the amount of, and it's derived from a pasuk, that's the amount of frankincense that is actually offered when you offer it with a meal offering. So that is what you say you're accepting upon yourself. That is how much you have to bring. And again, either you're going to bring the frankincense itself, or you're going to give the money towards it into that chest that says Levaina. Zav. Now he says gold. Now, really, the case here is not that he said gold, he said a gold coin. That's what he said. Then the halacha is laviv medinar zav. You may not give less than a golden dinar. The smallest gold coin that they had was the golden dinar. Therefore, if he said I accept myself to give a gold coin, he can give the smallest gold coin. What if he didn't mention coin? Let's say he just said gold. So then the halacha is that he doesn't have to give a gold coin. Then he can give a smaller amount. And that smaller amount is described as, if however he made no mention of a coin in the vow, he may bring much less. And this is how to describe what he can bring. Even the amount of gold it takes to make a small fork-shaped utensil, the smallest service vessel of gold used in the temple, is acceptable. How big that was? I don't know. How small that was? I can't tell you exactly, but it was pretty small. It was less than they describe it as much less than a golden dinar, which was the smallest gold coin. So in our case of the Mishnah, when he said gold, he said a golden coin. Where you just say gold, then he could bring even less than the dinar's worth. And again, you can donate the dinar itself. Oh, well, actually, he's in the case of the dinar, he's going to give the dinar coin. If it's not the case of the dinar, then he's going to either bring that vessel itself, which is probably hard for him to make, or he's either bring the amount of gold to make that vessel, or put in the value in the or wait a minute. Yeah, there was no chest that said gold. So we're just saying a case where he goes ahead and he says, I'm going to bring gold. Then he would just bring that little amount of gold that would be used to make that vessel.
This was a minimum amount. They could give more.
Sure.
Just the minimum.
Sure.
All right.
Okay. Misha continues. Shishal and Adava. We mentioned that 6 chests were used for the Dava. Which they translate, or they commonly use the phrase voluntary communal sacrifices. And as we said, these were sacrifices that were brought, that when there weren't going to be a lot of sacrifices brought on the Mizbeach that day, they want to make sure the Mizbeach was always in use, that after they brought the sacrifice that had to be brought for that day, they now bring these extra sacrifices. So they were not communal in the sense that they were brought for the community, but again, it was something that was brought and came from general funds. So now the Mishnah says, Shishal and Nadava, these 6 chests that said for Nadava, for the voluntary communal sacrifices. Nadava Mayasinba, what do they do with this Nadava? What do they do with these voluntary communal sacrifices? Or at least the money towards it, right? We said that's the money that goes into the chests. The surplus of money that was designated for certain sacrifices, and you had extra money after you designated the money towards a sacrifice. You had extra money. What do you do with it? You put in these chests. What do they do with it? Like Chenba they purchase with this money burnt offerings. Habasar Lashem, the flesh goes to God, means it's burnt on the altar. V'ha'oiris l'kayanim, and the skins, the hides, go to the kohanim. That's the rule by any olah. By any olah that we call a burnt offering, that everything's burnt. The hides are not burnt. The hides go to the kohanim. And that's what happens here also with these olos, with these sacrifices that were bought with the surplus money. Now the Mishnah now tells us the source for all this. Zeh midrash darash hayada kohen gadol. This was the derivation that Yehoyada the kohen gadol derived from the Torah for us to know that when you have this surplus money, that it goes towards that. What you do with it is you buy these burnt offerings. Why? Because the pasuk reads like this: Asham hu, it is a asham offering. Asham la Hashem, which means for that which has become guilty, he shall bring an asham to Hashem. Now, so again, this pasuk is talking about, yes, carbon asham, a guilt offering. It's talking about what we call an asham toli. Won't get into what that is right now. There's a certain type of asham carbon. Now, on that carbon, the Torah says asham hu, it's an asham, it's a guilt offering. Asham la Hashem, because of his guilt, he'll bring an asham to Hashem. So there's a problem. The first part of the pasuk says asham hu, it's an asham. That means that it's a regular asham. And a regular asham, the halacha is that the meat goes to the kohanim also. You have the parts that are offered on the mizbeach, on the altar. Then you had the meat that was given to the kohanim. And so really, when you're dealing with an asham carbon, it's really, it's a carbon that's eaten. The kohanim eaten, part of goes on the mizbeach, and then the meat goes to the kohanim. So when it says asham hu, it's an asham, that would imply it's a regular asham. It's a regular asham sacrifice. But then the pasuk says asham la Hashem. It's an asham carbon to God. That implies it goes to Hashem. That means it's burnt. So which one is it? So therefore, the zahaklal. This is the rule. Kol shehu ba mishum chet mishum ashba. Whatever comes because of sin or guilt. Yilakach by oiles. You buy with it burnt offerings. Habasar la Hashem. The flesh goes to God. Va'eres la kohanim, and the hides go to the kohanim. Nimsu shnei ksuvim kayamim, and it comes out that both psukim, both scriptures are going to be able to be fulfilled. Asham la Hashem, you've got the asham to God, the asham la kohanim, and the asham to the kohanim. So it means like this: the pasuk is talking about an asham, right? So what is it? Does it go to the kohanim? Does it go to to Hashem? So if Yayada darshaned, the drasha is that this, in order to answer this contradiction, we're not talking directly about a carbon asham itself. We're talking about the case of the surplus money. That a person went ahead and designated money to buy an asham carbon. When he bought the animal for the asham carbon, he had extra money left. And this not only applies to the surplus of an asham carbon, but like it says, anything that comes because of sin or guilt. That means if it's a carbon chatas, a sin offering, which also the halacha there is a regular chatas offering, the Kohanim eat the meat. But here we're saying that anything that comes because of a chatas or because of an asham, what it means it comes because of a chatas or an asham, it means this case, you had the money that was designated either for a chatas or for an asham, these type of sacrifices, you designated money towards it, and you landed up having surplus money. You didn't need all the money. Okay, so what do you do with that money? What do you do with it? The answer is you'll have an asham. In some ways, it'll be like a regular asham. The Kohanim will have some kind of benefit from it, but it'll also be asham l'Hashem. It'll also be asham to God that some of it will go to Hashem. And how is that? How is that balanced? The answer is look at what you do by a burnt offering. You take the meat is burned and given to God, while the hides are given to the Kohanim. That's the idea. The idea is that what comes because of the sin offering or the guilt offering, what are you going to do with it? You buy burnt offerings. And by doing that, you've got something for Hashem, something for the Kohanim. And that's how each part of the pasuk is now going to be fulfilled. Ashamu, it's a guilt offering. That's a characteristic of a guilt offering. We're not talking about that. This what we're deriving is not talking about the guilt offering itself, but the money that came about because of the guilt offering, the surplus money from the guilt offering. There is going to be an aspect that it's an asham. It's like an asham. The Kohanim have something from it. What's that going to be? That's going to be the hides. The asham l'Hashem, where it says it's a guilt offering to Hashem, that means it goes to Hashem. In that aspect, it's going to be the aspect of the ola that the meat is burnt, and that's what it means it goes to Hashem. So this is the source of where we learn this idea that the surplus money of a chatas or an asham, you go out, you put it into those communal sacrifice chests, because an ola is going to be, that money is going to be used to buy an ola, which the meat will be burned and the hides will go to the Kohanim. Now, the Omer, and it also states, Kasav Asham, the Kasav Chatais, the money of a Asham sacrifice and the money of sin offerings, L'Yuva Beis Hashem, they shall not be brought to the house of God. The Kohanim you, they shall be for the Kohanim. What's happening here at this point is like this. This is a pasuk in Malachim Beis. And this pasuk is talking about how the Kohen Gadol we just mentioned, Yoyada, made this decree. Decree was, this the pasuk states, Kesav Asham, the money for a Asham sacrifice, the Kesav Chatais, the money for sin offerings, Lo Yuva Beis Hashem, they don't go to the house of God, the Kohanim, they go to the Kohanim. That sounds like Yoyada said, if you have money that you designated to buy a Chatas offering with, or an Asham offering, a Yot offering with, no, you don't bring it to Hashem. Give it to the Kohanim. That's not possible. Can't be. If money was designated for a carbon, it's got to go for a carbon. Yoyada wasn't to Russia. So the answer is, so you know what he's talking about? That money that he's talking about? That money that he's talking about is the surplus money. The surplus money of an Asham, or the surplus money of a Chatas. Lo Yuva Beis Hashem. It's not going to be brought completely to the house of Hashem. La Kohanim you. It'll be to the Kohanim also. The Kohanim will have something from it. And that's the skins. So the point of this pasuk is to show that Yoyada was the one who made this derivation from the pasuk of the Torah that we just said. We have, my understanding is there was a tradition that this was the derivation for what we've been talking about, that these surplus monies go for these burnt offerings. And we said that it was Yehoyada was the one who made this derivation. How do we know? The answer is from this pasuk by Yehoyada in Malachim Beis, where he said these things, and it has to mean the surplus money. That's how we know Yehoyada is the one who made that derivation from the pasuk of the Torah to teach us that the surplus money goes for burnt offerings. Have a wonderful day, wonderful Shabbos, and a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.